So no, when I heard about this event, I thought like, well, user experience, cocktails, and all of that on a rooftop? That's amazing. I'm actually really excited to be here. Thanks so much for organizing this. Yes, warm applause for Wix. Thanks so much. So today I talked about designing decisions, and one of the things that I mentioned when it comes to design is the importance of moments. And tonight, I think, since we're all having drinks, and I also had a couple of drinks already, I thought it would be a good moment to open up a little bit and share a personal story with you. So, recently I asked myself, what is good design actually about? And because I recently came across some examples that were contrary to what I've learned in design so far. So today I'm going to share a little love story with you. I call it the Wrath of the Ugly Chair, the story of an ugly chair searching for love. So, every morning when I leave my apartment on my way to work, I daydream a little bit. But then, from time to time, I always cross Migros. And Migros is like a small store in Switzerland. And whenever I pass Migros, something that never ceases to amaze me is the monstrosity of their chair's design. I mean, look how ugly this is for a second. I'm just going to let you look at this for a second. So, no sweet talking in the world is going to make this chair look beautiful. And so I wondered, how can anyone design something that makes me both feel uncomfortable to look at and sit at the same time? And I didn't find the answer, and I just thought, well, there are just people out there who don't have any taste, right? So at some point, I started to feel really good about myself because obviously I have taste, right? So actually, I'm going to zoom this out, so I don't want you guys to get eye cancer or something. So, and then after a while, I gradually stopped looking at the chair. So I went on living my life, But one night I came home like really late. I think it was like at 1 in the morning or something. And then I realized that those chairs were never locked. There were no chains attached or anything. And that's really unusual because in Switzerland, people love locking up stuff because they're afraid that someone's going to steal it. But those chairs weren't locked. So this made me question, why aren't those chairs locked? And that's when it hit me. Because unless you want to impress your friends with a terrible taste in furniture design, you're not going to take one of those chairs with you, right? So this really put me into research mode. Suddenly I thought, wait a second, maybe there's more behind this design. And so I started researching, and for instance, the color red. So I came out and actually realized that the color red, I find it really awful. I'm colorblind a little bit. Maybe I see red different than you guys. But for me personally, it's awful. And then I realized that red is actually a color that is responsible for metabolism. So when we perceive the color red, it changes the metabolism in our bodies and increases appetite. So restaurants have actually been using this technique for quite a while now because they know the color red is very important because it increases sales in restaurants. And then let's talk about comfort here for a second. When it comes to furniture design, you might think that one of the key tenets of good design is to create furniture that's comfortable, that looks good, right? Well, one might be wrong. Because there are actually people in this world whose task is to create chairs that are comfortable, but not too comfortable. And the reason why is because restaurants don't want you to stick around for too long. They don't want you to just order a coffee and then stay in for the whole day. They learned that if the chairs aren't too comfortable, that new people will come in. So this was mind-boggling to me. I thought like there are actually people in this world who create chairs like this. But more importantly, I asked myself, is this good design? So Dieter Rams once said that good design is honest. I'm not sure if this design is honest. I'm sure you all have an opinion and we should totally share and exchange afterwards. But Mr. Rams also said something else. He said that good design is aesthetic. And now we probably all agree that this chair isn't exactly aesthetic, right? But the chair, there's something magical about this chair because this chair has a purpose. The design of this chair has a very clear purpose. So I was very quick with my initial judgment, and I actually fell into the trap that's the most dangerous in design, and that's being superficial. I judge the chair for the way it looks rather than for what it tries to achieve. So I think in general, when it comes to judging design, we're often very quick when it comes to that. We often judge the outcome rather than the process, and we often judge without understanding what the design actually really tries to accomplish. So let's look at another example here for a second. When web fonts became available for the web, people went crazy. We saw some of the most creative font combinations of all time. It was a disaster. But after some time, people learned more about typography. As people learned that web design is 95% typography, people suddenly got into it. And as we started, and as typography generally improved, another problem started to come along: loading times. Because as people started embedding so many different fonts on their website, loading times obviously increased. So I don't know if any of you have ever used Google Fonts, but actually I'm sure some of you have used Google Fonts. So now in Google Fonts, you can pick from a variety of free fonts, and then you can pick all of the different font styles that you need. And one thing that really surprised me as a designer was that there isn't a select all button, because if I see so many checkboxes, I feel like I'm too lazy. I don't want to click each font individually. So that was weird. And then I realized that this actually adds friction to the interface. It makes the process of choosing fonts more painful. And by adding friction to the process, now let's say I choose normal 400 and then I say semi-bold 600, every time you click on a checkbox, you can see how the page load time actually decreases. It makes the font selection process more painful, but it also makes you more deliberate about which fonts you actually want to include. So I guess what I learned is that I should take a little extra time. Every time when I look at the design I know, try to take a little more time and not try to be too fast in my judgment, and I keep getting surprised because I learn a lot by doing so. And that those reasons, the reasons that the design is the way it is often the reflection of countless discussions and a long process. A process that tries to balance the needs of a company and the needs of a user. And that's when I usually gain deeper insights. So how do I feel about this chair today? Well, now that I took more time and gave myself permission to question its purpose, I learned something new along the way. I've come to appreciate the chair in its own way, because I found that there might be more deliberation in its design than I initially expected. So I think, to me, creating good design is about understanding the purpose of something. Designing and communicating the purpose often comes with compromises. But those compromises aren't always bad, because we always think that compromises is a bad thing. But maybe compromises are necessary because they are part of designing in the real world. Thank you so much.